So I'm back in the hot tub talking with conservative people. Not all of them conservative, mind you. Some of them identify as progressives. The person we're going to talk about tonight is a progressive. Listens to Rachel Maddow every day. Votes progressive. Thinks progressive for the most part. You see, when I talk about conservatism, I'm not just talking about the far right wing or centrists or conservatism as we think of it politically. I'm talking about having conservative thoughts. And by conservative, I mean historically conservative. Thoughts that either evolved into us or were indoctrinated into us. And despite evidence to the contrary, we maintain these conservative ideas. And certain situations, certain life experiences bring out these conservative tendencies. The question we're going to tackle tonight is, why is nudity so vilified in modern society? Why is it a felony to be naked? What is it about nudity that we find so revolting? Why is it illegal? In a strange twist of irony, I'm sitting in the hot tub and a friend of mine walks in. He's not particularly old or particularly young. He's roughly my age. As I said, he's a staunch progressive. He is openly and outwardly progressive. And interestingly enough, in a space like the hot tub where it's acceptable to be nude, he hot tubs in the nude. I personally do not. I wear trunks in the hot tub. But my progressive view on nudity just blew away this person. Here we are sitting in the hot tub discussing nudity. I mentioned to him, I said, why is public nudity such a big deal to everybody? Why do people frown upon it? Why do people get so upset? Why is it a felony? Why is it considered traumatic to see a penis or a vagina or breasts or just somebody with their shirt off, a topless person? Why does it bother some people to see women's ankles or their neckline? What is it about the human form? What is it about Homo sapiens in their natural state that's considered so horrible and evil? And again, I'm not just referring to this artwork that you're seeing. What if you should find yourself in public, nude, maybe through no fault of your own? Should that be considered pornography? Should you be arrested? Have you done anything wrong? Have you done anything to wrong society? If you should happen to find yourself in the nude or decide to go outside nude, should you be considered a sex offender? Every neighborhood you move into after that day, should you have to go around and tell everybody that you're a registered sex offender because you were nude? Because the natural human form was exposed to society? I posited this question there in the hot tub, again, ironically, to someone who was nude. And he said, well, you just want to see more nude people. You're just one of those weirdos. And he had other things to say about it as well. He said that he had a daughter. And what if she were to see a penis or a vagina or be traumatized by public nudity? I kind of had to laugh at this. This is exactly what the far-right conservatives talk about when they talk about protecting society. They talk about their daughters. They talk about their children. Well, what about the children? Here, this progressive was bringing to me the exact same argument. What about the children? Well, what about them? Should a penis actually be a traumatic event for a child? Or is this something that we ourselves have been indoctrinated into, and we are now indoctrinating our children into this notion that just the human form, as it was born, as it was when it was born, is somehow disgusting? It's a very conservative idea to consider the human form disgusting. Mostly, the roots of that disgust come from our religious ideology. It comes from our religious past. Now, the current religions that are dominant in the United States especially, but elsewhere in the West, revile humanity. We are of sin, we live in sin, and none of us are innocent. Our bodies are disgusting and shameful and should be hidden away. We shouldn't masturbate, we shouldn't make love. Women are especially disgusting, especially in the Islamic, Christian, and Judeo traditions. They're unclean, they're filthy. They're not even to be allowed in the house if you read the book. If you read the Bible, if you read their literature, women are absolute filth. They're certainly not men, and men are made in the image of God. Now, this obviously was written before we knew anything about science, before we knew anything, and could actually progress past these ideas. Although it didn't take biology and evolution and cladistics and genetics to demonstrate to us that women are basically the same thing men are. We could see that, and people did. Not all cultures revile the human form. Not all cultures hate people, humanity, and who they are. But the religious cultures of the West absolutely do. They despise humanity. It's not a coincidence that being naked is considered a sex crime. Sex itself, in the Abrahamic tradition, is a crime. It's a disgusting act, and they've written it throughout all of their books. And it's been reinterpreted and reinterpreted the same way, generation after generation, because the book is so clear about these acts. This is what I mean by conservatism, conservative thought. The modern conservative thinks, well, this makes me uncomfortable, therefore it must be bad or wrong, and we should make it illegal. The modern conservative has a hard time looking past this notion that just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean the law of the land should legislate against this behavior. Now, the thing that conservatives like to bring up to me is they like to say, well, do you want to see more nudity? Do you want to be uncomfortable? And the answer is no. But my own comfort as a progressive is not the end-all, be-all of how society should behave. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what humanity's rights are. You have a right to be human, even if that means that you're naked, even if that means that you're nude, even if that means that your body parts are ugly, or if they're incredibly beautiful to look at. You know, when I first started going to my gym about 10 years ago, it was a little weird for me to get used to all the naked people. There are naked men that just walk around the locker room like that's their job. I mean, for half hour at a time, they'll comb their hair, they'll blow dry their hair, they'll put on deodorant, they'll stand there and talk to you, they'll talk to each other, they'll talk to somebody else, they'll call staff in. Hey, you, I'm locked out of my locker, or hey, are there any more towels? It's like, yes, there are. Put one on, please. Now, it's clear that the folks that wrote those ancient books, those religious texts, they were disgusted by humanity, and they thought that that's how God should think too, and that's why they made God think those things. That's why they wrote God the way that they did, because they hated humanity. But that's a conservative notion, one that we pass down generation to generation to generation, one that perhaps we should consider changing. I was really surprised at just how adamant my progressive friend was against nudity, and just how devoid of understanding and nuance he was when I brought all of these points up to him. He just kept saying the same thing. Well, you just want to see naked people. You're just weird. Like I'm some sort of pervert because I'm not completely disgusted by testicles. It was a bizarre line of reasoning, one that, of course, bared no relation to reality. He had no evidence to demonstrate what he was saying, and all of the biological evidence is on my side. So he had to switch his tactic to ad hominem. And that's another thing. Most conservatives, most of the time, can't counter-argue. They can't come back at you with anything demonstrable. So they just switch their tactics. They just start calling you a pervert. One of my favorite responses, and he had this response, was, well, it was good to talk with you. I always like hearing other people's opinions. He had to leave this conversation as if it was a learning experience, even though it was obvious he didn't learn anything. And he had to debase my position to an opinion. It's not an opinion that we're born this way. It is, however, an opinion that because my conservative friend is disgusted by the human body, that everyone else should bow to this disgust, that everyone else should fall in line. Now, what my progressive conservative friend, or my progressive friend with conservative thoughts, failed to realize was that he himself was pretty immune to the nudity that he experienced in the locker room. And that brings up an interesting question for those of you that are progressives who have this conservative belief that nudity should be repressed, that the human form should be illegal or offensive, or that it's traumatic. Can you find a space in you, in your mind, where it might be okay to be nude? Can you get to that place? Can you get past your ick factor or your discomfort and find some space where it's just is, And maybe you wouldn't prefer it to be there. Maybe you wouldn't call for it, but you accept it. You just walk past it. It's just another naked person. So what? That's just Bob or Karen. They're just one of those guys. They just get naked sometimes, or they like to be naked in public, or they can't afford clothes, or we live in the Florida Keys. It never gets cold enough to get clothing, so why buy it? Why wear it? Is that ever a place that you could go in your mind? A progressive progresses past that discomfort and recognizes that humanity has rights, whether we like that or not, whether we like the outcome or not. We have a different problem to deal with now. It's not that the problem is there's nude people all over the place. It's that we have something internally to resolve and rectify our discomfort with nudity. And nudity is just a placeholder for a lot of different kinds of things that humans have a right to do and a way of being that might make us uncomfortable. But could we ever see our way past that? Thank you for listening.